Apologize for starting late. We were having some good discussion and getting an update on our annual report, which will be also presented tonight. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Dr. Thomason, roll call.
President Reese, members of the board, please let the record show that all board members are present.
Thank you. We will have our moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
President Reese,
Mrs. Whitener.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns on the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. 5.0, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Thomason.
President Reese, members of the board, at this time I'd like to welcome up Michelle Reese to do some awards and recognition presentations. Michelle Reese.
Good evening, President Reese, members of the board, cabinet members, thank you, and of course our wonderful Higley audience. Tonight we will be presenting our Points of Pride from Higley High School. I would like to bring forth Mrs. Nancy Diab-Scott.
You'll have to pardon me, I'm still getting over this. So, President Reese, members of the governing board, cabinet, Dr. Thomason, and the community members. I would like to honor today 4 tremendous people from Higley High School. First, I would like to start with our parent volunteer. This amazing parent I've had the pleasure of knowing through not only my beginning at Higley High School, through Cortina, through Sossaman, and now back again at Higley High School. Her and her family did an amazing job, and they donated much time, money, and effort to upgrading our press box at Higley High School. So I would like to present Tiffany White as our parent volunteer of the month with our Points of Pride. So please come on up, Tiffany. No, you get to stay up here. Yes, and I would, Tiffany, could you please introduce me, please? And especially her wonderful, fabulous husband, who's very embarrassed when I talk about him. Next, I would like to introduce our wonderful staff member of the month and for our Point of Pride. This amazing woman traveled with me through many a journey, not only my journey through Sossaman, opening Sossaman, and now my journey at Higley High School. And I might cry a little. She's absolutely tremendous. She is my right hand. She is my social director at Higley High School, helped us organize our first salsa competition with over 30 entries, just had a blast, and just really makes that first impression of Higley High School what it is. So I'd like to honor Lisa Simmons. Please come on up. And Lisa, if you could please introduce your wonderful family also.
My Jason of 14 years. Jacob is kindergartner at Centennial, and Lacey is an 8th grader at Sossaman.
And this fabulous gentleman that I'm introducing next is our Teacher of the Month that we're presenting with our Point of Pride, Mr. Chess Sharp, who has been our marching band director for the past 10 years. Mr. Sharp, if you could please come on up. I know how much he loves all of this attention and all of these eyes on him. I have to tell you, Mr. Sharp spends endless hours at the school, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. I have a funny little story that I shared with the staff today. So I got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from some community member that was driving by and thought our press box was getting broken into again. And I sent security, everybody just converging on the football field. And lo and behold, it's our fabulous Mr. Sharp on the press box conducting our marching band. So all of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, all these people are coming up worried. So he just truly spends endless hours in working with our students. He has grown our marching band program tremendously, and we're running out of uniforms and all of this fabulous stuff, which is great problems to have. And so thank you, Mr. Sharp, for your dedication to our students, our marching band, and to our athletic program, and all that you do for that. And if you could also introduce your wonderful family.
Okay. Tonight here with me is my wife, Soraya, and then our 4 boys, Aiden, who's a freshman at high school, Dallin, who's in 6th grade at Centennial, Parker's in 4th grade at Centennial, and Colin, who's in the pre-K program at Sossman Early Childhood Center.
And this wonderful young man that I'm going to introduce next has a great story. So Drayson Hall is an outstanding member of Higley High School, not only on our football team, but also in the community. My first interaction with Drayson was actually an email from a St. Mary's parent after our very first football game. And as a high school principal, sometimes you worry because you just never know when you open up those emails what those are going to say. And the first line of that email was thanking Drayson and recognizing him because one of their players completely shot out their knee, was injured. It was pretty traumatic. And Drayson went out of his way, went over to check on him, not only when he was down on the field, but then after the football game. And this truly stood out in the eyes of this parent enough to hunt us down, get our email, and email all of us to let us know about this and what an impact that young gentleman made on that family and on the kids and in the eyes of the school. So I want to say thank you with Drayson. Drayson, come on up. Come on over. So Drayson not only has excelled on the football field, but he's also excelled in the classroom with a 4.2 GPA. He's part of an elite class of athletes that participates in 3 sports at Higley High School, plays football in the fall, wrestles in the winter, and runs track in the spring. So far this football season, he is the state's leading rusher with 998 yards and 10 touchdowns. Drayson is a very hardworking, dedicated young man who always has a smile on his face and a positive attitude. And we just recently found out that Drayson's also recognized as the Arizona Cardinals Player of the Week, and the Cardinals are coming out to recognize him tomorrow. And Drayson, if you could also introduce your family.
Okay. So my little brother's actually playing a freshman football game over there, so that's where my family is, except my mom and my dad are here to support me, I guess.
Thank you, parents.
We are going to continue a few more celebrations this evening. Thank you to all the students for coming tonight. I'd like to bring forward the Director of Transportation, Mr. Josh Crosby, to present the Points of Pride Award for his department.
Thank you, President Reese and members of the board. I am honored to be here tonight to recognize an outstanding employee in the Transportation Department. She came to us back in 2012 working for another district as a bus driver and walked in the front door, kind of explained some trouble she was having at a district that borders ours. And I'm always hesitant when I hire those drivers because we want to train them our way, the Higley way, but I really felt good about talking with her. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. She currently drives the Buffalo route and, like I said, has been here since 2012. She's there for the kids on the good days. She's there on the bad days. She always has a smile on her face. All the new employees look to her for advice on how to manage their students, and she just does an outstanding job. So as the students call her Miss L, if you could please come up here and accept this award. And you want to introduce Gary, your husband here?
The love of my life back there, Gary.
Ellen.
We also like to present information about some of our schools and the different programs that we have going on there. And tonight, I get to introduce Assistant Principal at Coronado, Brian Griggs.
So, President Reese, members of the board, thank you for the chance. No, you can. It's going to be a video, yeah. Yep. And also, I wanted to say thanks to Miss L for driving the Coronado Buffalo bus. Like, she's awesome. And then I also wanted to say thank you to Pana Leatherby. She actually helped arrange this trip to Shijiazhuang Foreign Language School. Some of the connections that she had made previously helped us make this new connection for Higley. So I'm very thankful, Pana. Also wanted to brag about my teachers. They had to do an impromptu 5-minute warning professional development at Shijiazhuang Foreign Language School. Normally something they would take weeks to prepare for. They got asked with only 5 minutes to prepare and rocked it. And so I wanted to brag about them as well. And then after the video, one of our all-star robotics teachers from Sossaman Middle School, John Burke, is going to share his thoughts on it. And so there we go. Hi, my name is Brian Griggs, and I'm the assistant principal at Coronado Elementary School. And one of the things that we do here is to prepare students to be successful leaders in a global society. And so when we had the opportunity to go to China, we're like, we've got to do this. This is part of what we're all about as a school. We went to Shijiazhuang Foreign Language School in the city of Shijiazhuang. we got invited by some of our contacts there to work at a summer camp. They had invited us. They really value American teachers, especially because they're wanting students to be more creative and to be better at problem solvers. And so they knew that we had a reputation for that, and so they invited us there. And we definitely wanted to give our teachers that opportunity to make that global connection, but also to just experience the culture and to know more about China in a firsthand experience, so that when we teach our students about Chinese culture, we can speak from, we've done it, we've lived it, and we've experienced it and loved it.
Okay, my name is Shayna Adetakunbo. I teach 3rd grade at Coronado Elementary. When I found out that I was going to China to teach, I knew that I would be teaching 1st grade and 2nd grade. And I knew that they wanted to get just knowledge with the kids of getting the kids speaking and listening to a lot of English. So what I did to prepare is that I brought a bunch of picture books with me to China, and my lessons incorporated the picture books. So we would read the picture books together, and then there would always be some sort of art activity or some sort of activity that we would do with the picture books afterwards. With the 1st graders, I would have to read more to them, but by the 2nd week with the 2nd graders, they were able to choral read together the books for the most part.
Hi, my name is Emily Nicholas, and I teach 1st grade at Coronado Elementary. In China, every day we would get there about a half hour before school started, and we would be with our teacher assistant and get everything ready for the day, and then we would teach for an hour and a half, and it was mainly focusing on English language arts because we were teaching them English, and then we would always take a half an hour break. They called it a rest time, so all the teachers, we got together in another room, and they would give us some snacks, we could talk about our lessons, and then we would go back and have about another hour and 10 minutes. And then the kids were dismissed around lunchtime because it was a half-day summer school program.
Hi, I'm John Burke. I teach at Sossaman Middle School, and I'm currently the Applied Technology Robotics teacher. The students responded to my style of teaching with great amusement. They loved the lessons. They loved how interactive the teachers from America and Canada were. They loved the fact that we got out from behind the desk and actually engaged with the students. A lot of project-based, a lot of letting the kids figure out the lesson rather than showing them the lesson, which the kids really took off and went in so many different directions, and they loved that.
My name is Trisha Beatty. I teach 1st grade. I teach the English side of the Mandarin program here at Coronado Elementary. The culture in China was very different from what we experience here in the United States. The children and the parents are very enthralled by American teachers. They respected us. They wanted their children to learn how to speak like us. When we went out with them for dinner dates and stuff, they wanted us to be engaged with the children, speaking the language, and they really wanted their children to have the American experience firsthand from us teachers.
The one thing I did take away from there is that, here, where I would teach for a week and I would then assess, and every day we assess, at the end of class, we do a check for understanding kind of little thing. We do it with placards and stuff like that. But in China, they don't so much do it that way. What they do is at the end of the week on Friday, they do kind of show and tell. Like, this is what I learned during the week, and Friday is all about now showing not just the teacher but the whole class in different groups what they learned, and kind of showing off the knowledge that they gathered over Monday through Thursday. So here this year, I'm starting to put together kind of like Fun Friday, where even though every day I check for understanding and everything like that, Fridays, let's take a little bit of time and show off what we learned, and you show what you got. And it's also it's a re-instruction and a check for understanding, and the kids to just actually get up, move around, and show other groups what they've learned. So that's the one thing I take away from my experience in China.
I got a great understanding of the Chinese culture coming back and bringing it into my own classroom as the English side of the Mandarin program. I have a profound respect for the Chinese teachers that come over here to teach, because I was that person who was the outsider and didn't speak the language, and I had to make huge adjustments to my teaching, so I really do understand where they come from and the cultural difference that they're experiencing.
So I'm going to stand this way. person at a better time. Chris, you're doing that on purpose, aren't you?
This is a call for the...
Hi, my name is John Burke, and I'm the applied technology teacher at Sossaman Middle School. I could talk to you about many wonderful experiences that I had with my fantastic HUSD China crew, or the incredible hospitality that was shown to us by our hosting school in Szechuan. Instead, I would like to to share briefly a presentation I was asked to create by our Chinese cohorts on American education. I wasn't prepared to make a presentation, or even aware of such presentation, of making such a presentation. But after some WeChat collaboration with my wife, Lisa Burke, Ms. Shauna Miller, Ms. Nancy Diab, and input from Mr. Griggs, I was educating eager Chinese moms and dads on how our American education system worked from kindergarten through college. After the presentation, we fielded many questions from attending parents. The contents of most questions were if I could explain in further detail what electives are, and how do we get Chinese students into American colleges. Incredibly, these parents were so impressed by the fact that students can choose an education path or try different fields of education through our elective programs. Afterwards, Mr. Griggs asked me what I thought about our presentation. I simply told him that I've never been so proud to be an elective teacher. He then started to chant repeatedly, USA, and said, let's go celebrate at McDonald's. Absolutely the truth. With growing technologies and evolving educational paths, I think American elective programs set us apart from most other nations. I am proud to be Sossaman's applied technology robotics teacher, and I hope Higley's elective program continues to develop and shine. Thank you, Mrs. Leatherby, my Coronado family, and HUSD for such a wonderful opportunity. It's my hope that we get to do this again in the near future.
And then just if you had any other questions, I can answer them.
It looks like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Looks like it was also a lot of hard work.
Yeah, we were definitely exhausted by the end of it, but it was a good kind of exhausted. So built a lot of connections. Actually, good timing. Our students received some cards from some of the schools that I visited, and so they are establishing pen pal connections and being able to practice and things like that. So we're already starting to see the fruit.
I know Mr. Burke went, but I didn't know exactly what you were doing. But this is a very powerful, a very powerful message. You know, exactly what your sentiment said. This should be on the news. And I know Governor Ducey is looking for he's looking for great and positive things that Arizona is doing. And Dr. Thomason, I really think this needs to make its way up. And especially as the discussion and the narrative that we have in Arizona about certain things that need to be funded, such as CTE and JTED funding, and exactly what this board strives to do is make sure there is something that every child is excited to go to school about, whether it's robotics or reading or music, and that those electives play an important role. And I'm very proud and honored that it was the Higley team that went, and that not only were we able to showcase the Mandarin English, but also the elective side. And it reaffirms some of the decisions that we've made at this, on this board, that there are certain things that we know, regardless of what the state says they want to not fund, are very crucial and important to what makes American education unique, and what keeps kids engaged and involved, and what makes them who they are. So I would really like to see this just be all over. That video, I would like these teachers to go present before the legislature, and we'll see if we can make that happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Griggs, that's okay. If you could introduce the staff that went, and also I just have a question for you if anybody wants to answer this question. as you did the travel over in China, did you have any aha moments, like you just like, wow, a memorable moment that you want to share with us? If anyone has any of those in the trip they'd like to share?
Well, I'm gonna bring them up.
Okay, why don't you bring them all up?
Come on up, guys.
Why don't you bring them all up?
So this is Kate Sloan. So she teaches kindergarten, the English side of our Mandarin program. And then we got Emily. So Emily is first grade. We got Trish Beatty is first grade as well. She teaches the English side of our Mandarin program. And then we got John Burke at Sassaman. So come on up, guys.
And you have your principal out there, I see too? Okay? Okay. Okay. Hold the fort down. Okay, somebody has to stay back. Stay back. Just if you do, fine. If you don't, but
oh yeah, definitely. China's a great place. I'd also previously worked in 2 years before in Shanghai, and so going back a second time, you kind of thought, oh, I got it going. But still, going there, just even a different section, there's just so many cultural things that being there open your eyes. And one of the big things for me were the families at the school. Every day, someone of different family took us to museums, temples. We made scarves. They took us out to dinner. They asked about our lives. They wanted to see our families. And that something was like a big aha moment, that these people who've never met us, don't know us, and they really wanted to take the chance to show us their culture, show us all these things, and like treat us as if we were visitors, like their own family. So that was a big aha moment for me.
you don't have to each go. I mean, it's okay if you want to. That's fine.
She's like,
okay, that's fine. Well, that's a wonderful opportunity, you know, and
very proud of my staff and very proud to be a part of Higley. A lot of the times we were the first, not only people from Arizona that they had met, but first people from the United States, and so it was great to have Higley as this is what America's like.
And it's a small world.
May I just say that I love the idea of the Fun Fridays, because I think it incorporates that concept of third-person teaching, which really reinforces learning. I mean, because who's the person that learns the most in class? The teacher, the one having to present information, and I think that's awesome, so.
Yep. I just see Friday findings. Friday findings. You tell the class what you found or your findings for the week. So, and then we'll have to get that on video too.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
For upcoming events, President Reitz, members of the board, we have fall break, October 3rd to the October 14th, followed by our next governing board meeting on Wednesday, October 19th. And then we have our business partners breakfast on Wednesday, October 26th. And that would be the events coming up for the next month.
Perfect, thank you. Board comments. Anyone have board comments tonight?
I don't, not at the moment.
Been busy. All right. We're going to go on to 6.0, request to speak to the governing board. So we value input from our constituents. This time has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Please remember, this is not an appropriate venue to evaluate, discuss, or criticize district personnel. Policy KEB provides a process for complaints about personnel. Speakers should be aware that false statements about individuals may result in civil liability. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. When you come up, if you can just state your name. I have, is it Lainey Culp? Is that correct? Okay. All right.
You can email the board too.
Penny, is it Motes? Montes? Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. President Reese, Governing Board, and Dr. Thomas, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Fanny Montes. I'm a community member as well as a patron of... I have that effect, sorry. No, I'm kidding. A patron of the school district, as my own children have and currently attend Higley schools. I'm also a proud employee with the district for the past 8 years. I teach kindergarten at Chaparral Elementary, and I come to you tonight with concerns regarding the current and past class sizes in the K-1 classrooms. Chaparral Kindergarten currently sits at class sizes of 28 students, and that's a lot of little 4- and 5-year-olds. Since the start of the school year, we have been working closely with our administrators, Mrs. Christine Hansen and Terry Pepper. We are grateful for their support and that Mrs. Hansen was able to acquire us an instructional aid for the 5 teachers to share. However, I wonder if this is the most effective way for me to reach all of my students. As their teacher, I feel it imperative to advocate on their behalf. I am currently unable to do the depth of teaching that I would like to, nor create the activities for engagement that my students deserve and should experience. Year after year, our class sizes are on average of 25 students or higher. And I ask tonight that the board revisit the current class size policy. In the early childhood setting, our area of concern now should not be 27 students. As educators, we should be concerned when an early childhood learning environment goes past 25 students. It is in the best interest of the students to have an optimal learning environment and experience, especially in kindergarten, where for some of them, this is their first experience in a school setting. I implore you that as a district where everyone is somebody, we take a look into this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Heather Balch? I knew.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Balch and I'm the lead speech pathologist for our district. I want to thank you for your time this evening. As you are voting tonight on the allocation of Prop 123 funds, I want you to consider our speech therapist staff. We have a fabulous team, many of which have been here for several years, and our speech therapists are integral parts of the education of our students. I do want you to be aware that as speech therapists, we are not eligible for 301 funding, and so when you're considering allocations for Prop 123, if you consider certified staff that receive 301 funding, we are not included in that. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about that as lead speech pathologist, to advocate for my team and to let you know that we help our students succeed both academically and socially. And please just consider that when you're voting tonight. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And Molly Montoya. I love the support. That's so important. It really is.
Good evening, President Reese and Governing Board members. Good evening, Dr. Thomason. My name is Molly Montoya, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Chaparral Elementary. I have taught in this district for the past 4 years, and I'm a taxpayer in this district as well. We are asking the board to considering lowering the policy on early childhood class size. Currently, I have 28 students in my classroom, and I've had that many since the first day of school. We have been working closely with administration, Mrs. Christine Hansen and Mr. Terry Pepper, since the beginning of the school year and appreciate their support. However, I still have concerns in my classroom. My concerns are the age of children entering kindergarten, whether or not they're emotionally ready, and if they can accomplish the more rigorous standards that kindergartners are expected to master. Also, with such a large number of students in class, it makes it difficult to complete more rigorous and engaging lessons with them. With these classroom activities, we want to be able to provide meaningful lessons where the students are able to build on prior knowledge, investigate, problem solve, and learn while keeping them excited at the same time. However, these engaging lessons are difficult to effectively facilitate with our students when our class sizes are this large. We need support to inspire our students to grow and thrive in kindergarten and beyond. This is why we are asking you to change the class size policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other requests to speak? All right. Thank you for that information. All right, we are going to go on to 7.0. I move that we approve the consent agenda 7.1 through 7.6, including the addition updates that we have been provided.
Support.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener?
I do have one clarification, but the supplementals are not numbered, so I don't know how to address it without saying the name. Usually, in years past, or not years past, in the past, there's usually been a number by each person's name. So I just caught it today. Mrs. Good, what can do I show Dr. Thomason? Do you want me to say the name? I can count down for you, maybe. Okay, so go to, it's the second page of supplementals. Actually, maybe how about this? Under termination and resignation of employment, the last employee on there, that employee has resigned but is also receiving a supplemental on page 2. But, so I didn't know. Oh, well, does he want to? Okay. So I said it out loud. Can you? Okay. Okay. Yeah, just, so the dollar amount here is not going to be the accurate amount, but, okay. Yes, thank you, that explains that.
Any other questions or concerns on?
I have one other question. I notice we're giving supplementals for mentorships for semester 1 and 2. Are they given the full amount, or are we going to wait till they actually complete semester 2? What if for some reason that teacher decides not to mentor, or they're not here with us anymore? Are we given the full amount up front?
President Reese, members of the board, the mentorships are giving at the end of each semester. And so after the completion, and there's paperwork and different assignments that the mentor and the mentee have to complete in order for them to receive that mentorship stipend, that mentor stipend, at the end of the first semester and at the end of the second semester.
Okay. I haven't seen it presented this way on paperwork before, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't paying them up front for semester 2 without necessarily showing that the work's been completed.
They are paid at the end of each semester.
Okay. And as well as fall and spring break camp.
That is correct.
Okay. So are we just kind of pre-approving things a little bit more sooner rather than later to get things a little bit more accurate with?
I think we're trying to have a better understanding of where all of the funds are going, so we're allocating them at the beginning of the year so we know what our financial outlook will be for the whole 16-17 school year. And so we're encumbering the funds at this time to make sure we don't over allocate the funds that we have.
And I like that idea. Just So we know that we don't accidentally give so-and-so, spring break and we realize, oh, they actually didn't work. They quit before then or whatnot, so.
Absolutely, and also on the supplementals, the ones that they work, they're proportioned out over paychecks on some of the athletic supplementals. So if they do not complete the season, they are not paid for the full season.
Any other questions? I mean, it's a lot to look at, and I understand why you're doing it that way, but it is a lot to look at.
I have one more for Dr. Fowler.
Okay.
You'll know what I'm referencing. There's a couple coaches. Are they teachers or they were just coaches?
That resigned?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I just have one question while you brought up the coaches. In reference to, I see the numbers on this list this evening in reference to Williamsfield. I just want to have a conversation, if you can respond, the equity with our other high school plays, if we have the same number that I am seeing here this evening on this list. Sure, I'd like to see that information because it's very, okay.
Mr. Wojtovich, along with that, this is a discussion Dr. Fowler, Dr. Thomason, and I started yesterday, kind of continued today. I agree, and it may, I know he doesn't have all the answers. Part of it may be that we just haven't gotten all of them. It is overwhelmingly overloaded with Williamsfield tonight.
Yes.
There are 14 football coaches on here. And I think I counted 4 Higley between last week and this, or last board meeting and this board meeting. And I counted 14 for Williamsfield in those same ones. So this is a discussion that we are having. It is being looked at. We do, as well as the stipends. I have asked that we look at the stipends, that they be categorized on the stipend schedule, and that we get that to the board so we have a better understanding, and making sure what we're paying out of tax credit and what's being designated to football tax credit and what we're paying out of football tax credit, that we are looking at that equally. So
Thank you.
yes, we're having that conversation. That conversation has already started.
Okay.
And so we will ask for an update for the board. And I think that just in general, something that we need to really start looking at on the appropriate percentages and things like that. So, because yeah, there's a lot of money here. And I don't know, I know Mrs. Ford is a little bit newer to this, noticing the 526 is tax credit money and the 001 is the M&O money. And we did put coach stipends, and I have asked Dr. Fowler and Dr. Thomason to do some revisions on the stipend schedule to get that out to us. And that will tell you, based on the sport or activity, how much they're permitted per stipend per category. So they're going to work on changing it a little bit. I found it a little confusing, and then they'll get it out to us. So then that's the district will pay for out of M&O, and then any additional can be done through tax credit. So just as a clarification. So
Because that would be very important, because in reference to, I saw these numbers and I don't see something similar to that in the marching band and some of the other fine arts programs as well, to be anything similar to this. And I just wonder how we educate our community in reference with the tax credits, if that is an option for them in reference to the music program too.
yes, and that we are asking for information.
Thank you.
So, and just as an example, if football brings in, I'm just throwing numbers out, so I know I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. If football brings in 20% of the tax credits and they use 20%, you know, it's just trying to look at that. So those are just numbers. They're not real.
It's just equity. That's my.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener.
Just because it is public meeting, I just want to make sure there's 11 on the agenda tonight, not 14. But you could be including the other head coaches.
There were 12. Maybe one has been removed from earlier. There were 12 today, and there were
President
2 on
Reese,
the other.
Members of the board, we did see earlier today that one was duplicated.
Okay, so yes, 11. Then there would be 13 because there was 2 on our last board meeting. So, perfect. Any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to approve the consent agenda. All right, we are at 9.0. And that is I move that we approve the allocation of fiscal year 2016-17 Prop 123 funds as presented at the September 14th work study.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
President
Do we
Reese.
have it up? Sorry. Do we?
I was going to say, could we look at it again? Do we have that?
All right. It should be up for public to see it.
And to kind of follow up on our public comment that was brought up regarding Prop 123, even with the approval of these Prop 123 funds, it is not all of the Prop 123 funds for this year yet. So this will allow us to get these funds allocated, and we still do have funds that we can look at for other allocations. I just didn't want you to feel like, well.
I'll just make a comment while we're waiting. We had a couple of work studies on Prop 123, and I do remember having a discussion around certified teachers that aren't qualified for 301 funds and other special categories of teachers that we wanted to include in Prop 123.
President Reese, members of the board, that is correct. We were taking a look at using some of the allocation from Prop 123 funds for supporting non-administrative certified staff, the same way we would as classroom teachers. And some of those staff would include guidance counselors, certified speech pathologists, psychologists, occupational therapists, and the sort.
Okay.
I feel like I should hear the Jeopardy music. But part of the, oh, see, looky. Prop 123 money.
President Reese, members of the board, Gary Holland will now briefly go over the presentation we had at the last work study.
Good evening, President. Good evening, President Reese, members of the board, Dr. Thompson, Cabinet. Thank you.
So you get to do 2 presentations tonight that you didn't know, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Always prepared.
That's okay. I came prepared. So what I'd like to talk to you this evening is about our Prop 123 funds. What I'd like to do is kind of quickly look at our FY 15-16 school year and then move forward to our 16-17 allocation, which is what we're looking at this evening. So quickly, just to kind of go back and recap for our 16 allocation. So our 16 allocation, we had a current budgeted, our current budget base was based off of $3,524.56 per our weighted student count. However, with the election as of last year, there was an approval where they passed some additional funding, so we were able to receive $120.44 in additional, moving that allocation to $3,645 per our student count. So as of June 30th of 2016, our total weighted student count was a little over 12,941, which is an increase actually of 1.2 where we had previously projected. Then we had our additional Group B add-on of 1,903. So if you took the additional $120 times our $14,844, which is those numbers added together, gave us an allocation of a little over $1.7 million, which actually was an increase of about $66. So not very much, but every penny counts. So this year, for our 17 allocation, again, we're looking at our current budget base. We had 3,681, again, based off of our student weighted count. We had an inflationary increase, so we have a little bit more, so we have $36.09 added to that, bringing it. So as of September 1st of 2016, our weighted student count was 13,526, which is actually an increase of 586.979, actually. We have our Group B add-on, which was an increase, so it was 2.1. Which is an increase of 279. So we had our 3609 times our 15,710, which gave us our 17 allocation of 566,985, which is actually an increase of $31,259. Just to kind of clarify, when we originally started and did this presentation back in last school year, we were basing it off of allocations that we knew at the time. However, the Department of Education changed that allocation a little bit and used some different numbers. That's how we're receiving an increase from where we originally projected. Maybe? No. What was that? That's a delayed response. So that skips us close to the end. Go back. Keep going. Going, yeah, go back.
There. Stop.
Um,
Or do you want to go back more?
We skipped a few slides.
Yeah.
So,
No, go back like 2 more.
more,
1 more.
more.
Okay.
We went to the end of the presentation.
That's the one.
So here we are. Okay. So what I'd also like to talk about is we have some additional money as well. So it's still all Prop 123. However, we have some money that we are receiving from the statewide land trust sale. It was a $50 million appropriation across the state. Higley's portion, oh, okay, they told me point that way. So it was based off, so we had our $50 million appropriation statewide, based off of our total student weighted count was 1.3 million. Higley's percentage of that was 0.0099%, which equated to the 13,207. So Higley's share of that 50 million actually equated to $497,000. Yeah, $497,001.07. Again, every penny counts. Again, that goes back to, that is an increase, actually, what our original projection was of $801 increase, again, because of ADE used a different set of formula, a different set of data. Okay, so we're looking at our 2016 deductions and our information, exactly how much did we have. So remember, a few minutes ago I told you our budget was $1.7 million. However, we have our district additional assistance deduction of $157,000. So actually we had to work with a little over $1.6 million for our 15-16 school year. So how does that all tie together? So we have our 16 money of the 1.6. We have our $566,985 for our 17. We have that one-time appropriation of the $497,000. So out of the Prop 123 money, we're estimated to receive a little over $2.6 million. So exactly how were those funds to be used? So a committee was brought together. We had several meetings to discuss and come up with a top 10 type of list. So these are some of the items and how they were ranked. So you'll notice we had increased compensation, continued longevity, teacher supplies, increase in budget supplies, technology enhancement. We had some independent reading program. We have some money for fine arts, as well as some ground beautifications. And of course, we have our dual enrollment and some athletic uniforms that we have purchased both for the high schools. Again, we're done. Okay, there we go. One more, go back, forward, thank you. Let's say, okay, again, so we were looking at 14 different items and what we, based off of the committee, that met around May 10th. We kind of narrowed it down to 10 top 10 items. Those items ranged from the compensation of the $1.6 million, which is the one-time stipend that all of the staff received. That was paid out actually at the beginning of this school year. So again, what I'm going to show you in a little bit is that carryover money. That carryover money actually equates and ties to this Prop 123, And so that's that payout that we're seeing in this fiscal year, this school year. We had some longevity, again, teacher supplies, supply budget just increase as in general. Technology, we have for some stipend payments, increase in our fine arts, and in some ground maintenance and improvements. Okay, so on the next page, here's the breakdown of how the details all worked out. So again, we have our 15-16 appropriation of the 1.6 million. We used 1.632 of that for those one-time stipends that I just mentioned. So we actually went over a little bit by $1,900. Then we have our statewide appropriation, the 497. We have our 17 allocation or appropriation of the 566,000. Adding those together, factoring our $1,900 overage, gave us a little over $1 million for the 16-17 school year. Again, these are some of those items from the top 10 list, just carried over. So if factoring those items in, we should have an estimated remaining balance around $377,000, which ultimately we'll be having to use for some additional incurred expenses that we're going to have this year that we're going to talk a little bit more in our AFR presentation. Do you have any questions? I know I kind of really fast.
Sure. I just have a question in reference to if we approve this evening, what will be the timeline for disbursement and beginning of these programs? When will we start seeing some of these things take place?
President Reese, Mr. Otovich, some of these things will take place immediately. Others will take a little bit of time to develop through committees. The stipends for lead teachers, department heads, and some of those professional development tuition reimbursements, and some of those will take committees to take a look at to make sure that we're making it equitable across the board from elementary to middle to high school, and so that will work with meet and confer to make sure that those are equitable. Other things will be immediate. Teacher supplies will be immediate. Supply budget increase will be immediate. Taking a look at adding some custodian benefits, that'll take place right away. Art supply budgets will be immediate. Grounds beautification will add extra staffing to make sure that we have that taken care of. So most of it will be immediate, but there are some things that will be committee work that will need to take place to make sure that we are equitable across all three levels of our schools.
Sure. I think the sooner the better, because the community reference to see some of these things as a result of Prop 123 is very important to start seeing some of those things. One thing, Dr. Schellenberg, I think I had a question during the Works Today session in reference to the fine art supply increase, that is that up to the individual principals at the school, or have you had a conversation so there's equity amongst all our schools, the disbursement for the fine arts programs? You know, at those individual schools that we know there's a plan?
Well, I think the money was distributed based upon a certain dollar amount per student.
Sure.
And then that was left up to the principal to work with their teams on how best those dollars needed to be used.
Okay. I was just curious in reference to if the individual school chose to go with all gym and then the other three specials don't have that option.
No, we are actually using other funds for PE.
Okay.
So it's only the music and the art programs that are sharing those dollars.
Okay.
Perfect. And
Any
I just want to
additional
clarify too, follow up on what Dr. Thomason said, that like the stipends and stuff, that money is being set aside to create some type of program. I don't want anyone to get confused and say, I'm a department head, when am I getting my stipend? That was approved by Prop 123, because there's not anything specific in place yet, but we've said we want to kind of earmark this money for some type of stipend. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Again, Madam President, members of the board, these are just estimated numbers. And some of these things, some of the
like the reading
some of the
program.
technology in the reading program came in significantly less than what we had projected. So we do have, again, these are just estimated numbers. They will shift and move based off of however the allocation works out.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions on the Prop 123 money?
I have a question, President Reese.
Mrs. Ford?
I just want to get clarification for myself as well on the increased compensation. So does that or does that not include, just to refresh my memory, the guidance counselors, speech pathologists, psychologists, et cetera?
Every employee got
That
the
was what we did over the
3.5%.
summer before school started with the 3.5%. That was
So it does.
every
Every
employee.
employee.
Received
I
it.
just wanted to
That was,
clarify
that was
for
every
all in the
employee.
row. Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
That we managed to get it within $2,000 of 1,100 employees. That's pretty good.
That was pretty good. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0 to approve the Prop 123 funds as they were presented.
Thank you.
We're on 9.2. Mr. Holland, don't go far. So I move that we accept the annual financial report and authorize its publication.
I second.
And Mr. Holland can continue his second impromptu presentation tonight.
So thank you, President Reese, members of the board, Dr. Thomason, Cabinet. This evening, I'd like to talk to you about our annual financial report, which is basically captures all of the expenditures for Higley as a whole from the 15-16 school year. So yes, you did review the actual financial report itself that has multiple pages and worksheets, but what I was hoping to do this evening is just to kind of give you a quick snapshot of everything so you're not bogged down in that entire, all of those spreadsheets. Thank you. I mean, I push the same button every time. Okay.
It doesn't like you again.
It's my night. Okay, so let's talk about some quick Higley fun facts. So last year, we had 12,633 students enrolled in our district. We had 1,128 employees. We had over 209,000 minutes worth of instruction. We issued, between live checks and direct deposit, 36,485 paychecks for a little over $58 million. We also served a little over 773,000 meals, and we drove 833,599 miles. The reason why I specify that is because that equates actually to 33.5 miles around the world we drove in 1 year. We were busy. 33.5 miles, or 33.5 times around the world last year.
Wow.
So, to give you an idea, it's 24,900 miles around the
Be
world.
the next DBU.
Multiply that.
Can that be the next middle school
or divide that,
DBU?
and that's how you
And,
get. I checked that several times to make sure I was not incorrect.
And we're in neighborhood walking schools. Sorry.
So, good thing we're close. Okay, so this year, I'm giving you a little bit of different picture than you've had previously. What I'd like to do is kind of give you the picture of actually what it cost the district as a whole to operate last school year. So last year, our expenditures totaled over $102 million, $102,353,749 to be exact. Kind of how that breaks down. We have our maintenance and operation fund where we expended $51.9 million. We have our classroom site fund, or our Prop 301 money. That money Higley chooses to use just for teachers' salaries and benefits. So there we paid out a little over $2.9 million. We have our instructional improvement, which is our Indian gaming revenue, and it's also revenue that we receive from property taxes. Those funds are used to pay our bonds. So we have our principal and interest payments on the bonds that we issued last year and in the previous few years. We also have our bond and building renewal and adjacent ways funding, so it was a little over $18 million because remember we built a new school that we just opened. Just kind of to quick highlight a few different items. So we had our debt service, again, excuse me, let me clarify one thing. Let me back up because I misspoke, I believe. Our instructional improvement, our Indian gaming revenue, again, that's used for teachers' salaries and benefits. Our debt service is the impact aid revenue and our tax, the property tax revenue that we use to pay for our principal and interest on our bonds. We have a little over, we have our federal and state grants. As I've always said, it's not enough, but we spent over a little over $2.4 million. And then we have our special accounts, our special cash accounts, which are 500 accounts. Those consist of typically our community education, our Center for Performing Arts, our auxiliary operations, our extracurricular or tax credit funds, as well as our gifts and donations. So out of those accounts, we expended a little over $4.8 million, bringing us to the 102, as I mentioned in the beginning. So I've given you a whole bunch of numbers. Well, what does that look like visually? Okay, so how it breaks down. So our M&O expenditures of that 102 is about 51%. We have our classroom site fund, which is about 4%. We have our bond and building and adjacent ways for our new schools and projects was about 18%. As well as the debt service, we talked about that, about 8%. We have, let's see, then we have our special cash accounts, which equated for about 5%. So what I'd like to do here is get a little bit more specific and talk about our M&O account, which is the majority of what is displayed in our AFR. So in that fund, our 001 fund, we expended a little over $51.9 million. And exactly how is that broken down? So we have our salaries and benefits, where we had budgeted 47.1, and we only utilized 43.4 last year. So we had a little bit of a savings of 3.6, and I'll explain that in just a moment. We have our utilities, where we had budgeted about 3.2. We expended about 3.2. Actually, we spent like $2 more. We have our purchase property services. Basically, that's our maintenance and repairs, where we expended about $524,000. We have our other purchase services, which is basically travel, advertising, postage, but our biggest expenses there are the tuition for our private schools, as well as the transportation of those students, and then communications as well. Okay, so there we started out with a budget of 56.4, and we expended 51.9, which gave us a balance of 4.4. However, what I want to point out there is please take note that the reason why we were able to have that is because of the Prop 123 funding that we received. And those one-time stipend payments that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, those were paid out at the beginning of this fiscal year, okay? So the money came from the state, but we paid it out this year, so that it's not really 4.4 we have sitting in an account because we've already been utilizing those funds. That's that 1.6 million that I just mentioned about those payments. We also have, we're also doing a new curriculum adoption this year, as well as purchasing some new technology because our technology is very old. However, we're having to do it in phased processes because we don't have enough funding to just update all technology at the same time. as well as we can't forget our middle school lease payments. Those payments in 15-16 and 16-17, that payment is a little over $3.2 million each year. In 18-19, another reason why we need to save is because in 18-19, that payment's going to go from 3.2 up to 4.2. In 19 and 20, that payment's going to increase again to $4.4 million every single year through the end of the lease, which ends in 2053. So we have a huge reason why we need to try to save as many pennies as we can, because we have these huge bills coming in our future.
Mr. Holland, I just wanted to clarify on the other purchases. You'd mentioned travel, and I just want to make sure it's not people traveling places on trips. You had mentioned the students that that have to attend the private schools for special needs.
So our other purchased services, that I didn't necessarily clarify, so that deals with employee travel, employee training, our audit services, our legal services, as well as some technical services,
Okay.
and then of course the staff, as I mentioned, that are not Higley staff. They're actually staff that are coming from our smart schools.
Okay.
So again, how does that look visually? Yes, ma'am. Do you have a question? You are. Go one more, please. See? It's not me. So, no. Okay, so I'll just keep talking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what does that look like visually? Too far. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm a very visual person. I'm very analytical, but I'm very visual. So I try to break things down to be a little bit manageable. As we know, in any business, salaries and benefits are our biggest expense. So as you'll notice, out of our M&O money, 84% of that was spent on salaries and benefits for Higley staff. We have our utilities, excuse me, which was about 6%. We have some purchase property services that we talked about, and that was a small, only 1%. And then we have those dues and fees that we had talked about, and then our purchase professional and technical services that we just discussed at about 4%. There we go. So just to kind of quickly recap, so I've given you a whole bunch of numbers, a whole bunch of details, a pie chart, but exactly, so let's get back to what the numbers were. So again, we started out with a budget of $56.4 million. Again, we strive every day here at the district to try to be as fiscally responsible as, every day we can, try to be fiscally responsible to save as much money as possible, because we never know what's coming around the next corner. Okay, so again, there's that $4.4 million that we talked about, but again, there's the Prop 123 money, the one-time stipend payments, the lease payments, the curriculum, the technology. Okay, so the next slide, what I'd like to talk about quickly is just the Auditor General's classroom spending reporting, and kind of compare that to Higley's actual expenditures. So this report comes out every March, April timeframe of each year. So the most current data that we had available was the FY 14-15 school year, or the state just considers it fiscal year 15. So that's why you see a difference of Arizona 15 versus Higley's 14-15. So as a whole,
Mr. Holland, sorry, I may have missed it in the very beginning. What ADM number are we using for this year? Student count. Sorry.
Our student count.
For this report.
At the time, this report was reflective of 10,648 students, I believe.
Okay.
which was quite a bit different. We had some growth.
Okay.
Okay.
And then as far as the weighted groups of students, is that included?
Say that one more time.
The weighted group of students? Or the, every
All of that's
student? Okay.
factored in. All of that, the Auditor General takes all of that into consideration. However, their formulas, as I was kind of mentioning, their formula, how they arrive at some of these numbers, are a little bit different than actually how we would show them in our own accounting system, because what they'll do is they'll look at and determine if some of these numbers they feel are off, then they will make those adjustments. However, they're not forthcoming with exactly where they made those adjustments.
And they're still using their student count as an average of attendance, correct?
I believe.
Meaning we could have 12,000 kids enrolled, but they take average daily attendance for student count. Is that still true?
It would have been based on our 100-day count, yes.
Okay.
So statewide, for classroom instruction, statewide they spend about 53.6%, whereas Higley spent 56%, so we spend more. Facilities, statewide, they spend about 12.1, whereas we only spent 11.5. We have our instructional support, where statewide they spent about 5.8%, whereas Higley spent 6.2%. And as I mentioned, the numbers for the 15-16 school year are not available at this time. They will be available in March, April timeframe, and so at that time I will come back to the board and present that data at that time. Okay, so the next one I'd like to talk about our Classroom Site Fund, or our Prop 301 money that we had talked about a little bit ago. So that money is broken up and is categorized in 3 different funds. So our first fund is Fund 11, which is basically base salary. Fund 12 is based off of performance pay, and then Fund 11 is other. Now this money is, again, these payouts are done twice a year. So for example, we started out with a beginning balance that we carried in from 14-15 school year. So we started the year last year with $319,000 in that fund. We had about $866,000 in revenue come in from the Department of Ed, and so we expended about $629,000 out of that fund. We have our performance pay, again, where we started with $178,000. We paid out, we received in revenue 1.7, and we paid out $795,000. And then out of our 13 or other, we had 522 when we started. We had 1.7 come in, and we expended a little over 1.5. What I'd like to just clarify there is, and please take note, as I just mentioned, those payouts take place twice a year. So based off of the performance pay, it's paid out in December, and then it's also paid out at the end of the school year. However, it's actually not paid out until the July, early August timeframe, which actually falls into our next fiscal year. Okay, so that's really not $2.3 million that we carried over, because if you look at our expenditures for this year, you'll see where that money has already gone out. Oh, and as I had mentioned earlier, Higley chooses to use the Prop 301 money specifically just for teachers' salaries and benefits. Okay, so next I'd like to talk about our unrestricted capital. So last year, the categories that we had purchased out of was technical services, books, both textbooks, library books, and instructional aids, some furniture and equipment. We had some technology, hardware, and software purchase and update, as well as, there we go again with those wonderful lease payments for our middle schools, as well as we paid off a lease that we had started for the GPS and the barcode readers for our buses that was implemented last year. Okay. So in total, we had a budget of 9.5. We expended 4.3. So we have 5.2 that we were carrying into this year. However, again, please remember, we have, we were trying to save every penny we could because we have a new curriculum adoption this year. We have those lease payments. We have the technology, as well as some additional projects that we were working on last year, upgrading painting, doing some new marquees, etc. So, and as well as we purchased a couple buses this year where we didn't purchase those last year.
Mr. Holland, it's important to note that we have not had a curriculum adoption in 10 years.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I've been told.
On
So it's kind of long overdue. And Dr. Schillingberg keeps asking me almost every day, where's the money? I need money. I'm like, okay, I'll find it. So next we have our other capital funds.
10 years and 6,000 more students. I mean, there's not even, the last set can't even be used.
President Reese,
Anyways, I
members of
think
the
that's
board.
important as, you know, as that's expressed in that dollar amount that's remaining of part of using those 1, 2, 3 funds and part of the override funding as well, is that we can't buy it just in these little chunks of 1, 2, 3 that we have to, you know, save up for it.
Right.
President Reese, members of the board, our adoptions are so old that we can no longer get used books to help fill the needs of our students and families within the district.
Any additional questions before we go forward? Okay. So next we have our other capital funds. So we have our bond funds, which we talked about a little bit ago. So we expended a little over $16.2 million out of that fund. We had our adjacent ways funding of a little over $1.8 million. And then of course you'll notice that building renewal fund at zero. The reason why we didn't spend anything is because we don't have any money in that fund. So there was nothing to expend. So in total, we spent a little over $18 million last year. Again, so what I'd like to show you now is some of the items and actually how we utilize those funds. So if we could please advance to the next. Okay, so we opened a brand new elementary school. So we have our beautiful new Bridges Elementary. Both of those. Then we had some paintings, which our schools were in desperate need. As you can see here, we had Higley High School before we did our painting project, and then we have our after. And we have the next
16 years.
16 years, wow. It was definitely in need. The next school is our, actually it's our Higley Center for Performing Arts. So as you can tell, again, it's another one that is in desperate need. However, this is what it looks like now. It's beautiful. The blue really makes it pop. So then we also have our next school. That's okay. Our next school is Power Ranch. So you can see what the condition that Power Ranch was in as of last year. However, this is what we have Power Ranch looks like now.
That was probably 11, 12 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's
Thank
been
you.
here that long?
So we also had we built a new school. We have some painting projects that we were undergoing. We did some floor upgrades at Santan and Coronado. We implemented an emergency management upgrade system at Higley Traditional, as well as we purchased some new marquees. So as you'll see from the slide, that this marquee is for Power Ranch. And then Chaparral will be getting a new marquee this year. It's just not in place at this time. It's coming. So on that, do we have any questions?
Thank you very
Anyone?
much.
Thank you for putting this together. It's very helpful. We talked about it in our work study. We went over it. We'll make sure it gets up on the website so our community can look at it and see where our money's going.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the annual financial report and authorize its publication?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
I just do have one question. I may have asked you this before. Is there any special recording of Prop 123 money, like when we do the AFR? Is it just because it just goes in the M&O? Like there's not a separate reporting of 123? Because I heard the governor is putting a new committee that he wants to make sure the money's been spent, 123, and how it's been spent. So I just wondered if the state was going to ask you for specifics. Or it's fine. Just M&O. Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right. 9.3.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener.
I move that we go ahead with the first or the second read and approve the amendment policy IFK requirements for graduation.
Support.
And if I can, can I read just what it's about? Or you can.
Go for it.
It's not new graduation requirements per se, but it talks about the new citizenship test that was passed by the legislature. It addresses some special education concerns regarding the civics test, and it's updating policy on the elimination of the requirements to pass AIMS because we no longer have AIMS.
Anyone have any questions?
I do have one question. Regarding foreign language, I was under the impression that foreign language was required. Do we really hand out 2 different diplomas? So why is it there?
It's only required for scholarship eligibility.
No, but I mean, do we actually hand out 2 different diplomas? Or are all of our kids taking foreign language?
We're laughing because we had a great deal of fun trying to figure that one out. And every person we asked had a different answer to it. What we found out is that there had been 2 different programs, 2 different diplomas, one called the Standard and one the Scholastic. The only difference being
The AIMS Scholastic,
2 credits of foreign language being required for the Scholastic. Mrs. Diab was the one, Diab Scott, was the one who got it clarified, that there had been the 2 different kinds of diplomas up until about 2 years ago, and they thought it might have been pegged to when they changed vendors for graduation supplies and so forth. So we're going to go back to it. We're putting in the requirements because kids were still talking about, well, I'll go for the Scholastic. So it was part of the culture, but it was, for a couple of years, it didn't happen. So we did quite a bit of research on that because we didn't know whether to leave in the 2 different categories. But there are going to be 2 different ones.
Perfect. Yeah, and they do have to have the foreign language to be scholarship eligible through colleges, universities.
Okay, so if they don't take the foreign language, let me see, then they take 2 more electives.
That's right. And basically the difference is what we're calling the Scholastic is really what the state universities are requiring. And so that becomes, when the students that take those, they're getting that recognition.
You know, it was
By state statute, we have to allow both the standard option and the Scholastic.
We do not have to. We do not. I don't have the history. I haven't been here long enough to know
Mrs.
Well,
when
maybe
the
just
decision was made.
I won't open that right now, a future agenda item.
Okay. I was just going to say they have something very similar in New York because New York has a Regents diploma
and then your standard diploma, and one is like for college bound and the other isn't, and it does require
But to
foreign
answer my
language.
question, state statute, we don't have to have the standard. We can, as a board, say,
But not everybody is, well, for this, it's for scholarship purposes, but not everybody might want to take that.
You have to meet the minimum state standards, and the state requirements are what is required for the standard diploma.
Right.
okay, so we do have to by law.
You have to have your standard diploma.
Oh, okay. What I was asking is, do we have to have the standard? Can we?
Can we exceed it is what she's asking.
Yes.
Like if we say.
You can.
Everyone is required to go the scholastic route. Everyone would be required
Then that would be your standard. I mean, you could go to one and you could raise that. That's a policy decision
Well,
for
isn't
an
it-
entirely different
Well, isn't it
conversation.
similar to, was it Gilbert? I don't know if they still have or they reneged it. Didn't they vote for a 23 credit for graduation?
As long as we exceed the state standard, right?
As long as you meet the state
Meet or
standard, you
exceed,
can
right.
do whatever you want.
Okay, they have 24 credits? All right, Higley, let's move it on up. 24 credits is their standard. Yes, very hot topic.
That would be interesting.
Thank you.
And I know somewhere, whether it was a couple years ago in the course catalog or something, where it does talk about the differences between the two. I don't know if it's still there.
It's
Okay.
not, it's
I was
not
like,
there now.
I know I read it probably when my son entered high school, so it was there. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, are we approving the first read? Are we waiving? Yours was to approve?
And I seconded.
No, your motion was to approve the first read.
And waive second. Right?
And waive second.
Oh, see? Here I am. All right, well then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries 5-0 to waive the second read and approve the policy IKF graduation requirements. All right, 9.4.
President Reese?
Mrs. Whitener?
I move that we waive the second read and approve an amendment of policy DJE, bidding purchasing procedures.
I'll second. I did have a question on this. Just in general, I mean, usually we understand why there's a change in policy. I'm just wondering, why are we requesting all these amounts to be doubled?
When we amended this the last time, we thought that we adopted the amount that it was at that time, but we had heard that it was going to be increased. So at that time, we put in the amount, and then we said, or such higher amount as is established by the state. And so that when it was increased, we were covered because we had this additional amount. What we've discovered, the problem we had, was that we did not increase the amount that could be spent at the discretion of the superintendent without any bidding or even seeking quotes. And that amount was raised to $10,000. At the time, I believe Dr. Thomas, I believe he had just become superintendent, and he said, well, I don't need to have it increased. But then that turned into a problem because we have Mr. Holland and we have people that say, well, you can spend up to $10,000. So we wanted our policy to be consistent, so because we had had a problem in the past where we had complied with the requirements, the statutory requirements, but had not raised our policy limits, so we had been in the position of having violated our policy. And so that became an audit finding.
Gotcha.
So we've got to get up to the amount so that we don't have any problems of that nature.
President Reese.
Mrs. Whitener?
I just wanted to, clarify too that this isn't us creating this. It is state statute that.
Oh, yes, these are the amounts that, and they're also the amount, it's the state.
Well, and some of those are talks of if they listened to one thing, it's that, that red tape that, if we need, if you have an increase in students and we need to purchase something and we've had high growth and, to go to a bid for 5,000, and that could include, supplies and materials or books of that nature. That's like, well, no, the superintendent, we've had immediate growth. We need to purchase some of these things. And I know that had been talked over for years, but, request for bid over 3 vendors, and they, sometimes it's hard why people understand why do things take so long to get things done, for us to, implement particular financial changes, is because we have to go through the bidding processes on those things. So, $5,000 to $10,000. Oh, maybe it's made just a little difference in making things move along faster.
Well, and with some of the larger purchases, we can cut down time frames and do by utilizing cooperative purchasing agreements where someone else has led the way at getting the bids and so forth. So we do utilize that in many occasions.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this policy? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0 to waive second read and approve the amendment of policy DJE for bidding and purchasing procedures. All right. We have on our future agenda items about our high school guidance counseling program. We do need to bring back our discipline presentation, AP presentation.
President Reese. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, should we also add their early childhood class size?
I'm just going to suggest something does that have, okay, never mind. Do you want information regarding it, or do you want it to come to the board? Because that was a comment that could be directed to staff, that they could research it and maybe they have a solution or something they're working on that Dr. Thomason could email the board, or I don't need to wait a month for staff to look at that issue and see what else they can do.
If Dr. Thomason, if you feel it's just most prudent to email and you already are working on some sort of solution or have information, that's fine.
But if you're asking bring the policy to a future agenda item,
Well, I think starting with an email is probably the best, and maybe if we need to look at it further from there. But I just don't want to leave any comments that were made tonight go unnoticed or not look into it further.
So yeah, if you can look into, because they were specifically talking kindergarten. How many kindergarten classes do we have over 25 or sizes average?
Absolutely, President Reese, members of the board, I can bring you numbers for all of our class sizes and a regular attendance report and a regular student enrollment report, and it'll show class sizes, average class sizes for all of our schools in each grade level.
it was specific kindergarten and first grade.
Right, and then possibly then comparing it to our policy as well.
I will also add the policy to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple items here. One, perhaps a presentation in the future in reference to staff communication and technology. I wonder if, I'd like you to put together something in reference, I know we have Outlook, and I'd just like to know if we're meeting the needs of technology, if like we're here at the cutting edge in reference to where we need to go with the future. Right now I use, at the college level, we use Google, and I can do so many things, base camp, sharing folders, all these things. And I know with our system, I cannot do any of those things. And it's, other school districts, as I'm communicating with other school districts around the community here, they are doing these things. And I just want to make sure that we're there and our staff can communicate appropriately and schedule appointments. And, with iPhones, communication, everything's quick nowadays. And I just want to make sure we're there, or we have a plan for being there. And if you could do that at a work study in the future, that would be fantastic. Okay.
President Reese, Mr. Witovich, if possible, I'd like to sit down with you and see what you're envisioning and make sure I'm moving in the right direction.
Sure, okay. And one other thing, if perhaps you could give the board an update in reference to the flooring at Santan and Coronado, please. If you could share that with the board in the near future.
Absolutely, I will work with Dr. Fowler and get that.
Thank you.
For you.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomason or President Reese?
This is
Just an information update on how the 1, 2, 3 committees, or how the ideas of the 1, 2, 3 funds will be spent the next 9 years. So if district has a plan, meaning will it be a committee every year? How will you update each year? How will you include? Will the committee continue for the 9 years? How will you change it? Because we just adopted 1 year. So what are you going to do for next year's funds and the funds? I mean, will the process be the same? Will you have whatever district staff is thinking about that? That could be an information update on
superintendent.
It could be superintendent's update report, or just
Absolutely.
on
President Reese?
action 9.0. Let's action information item.
Okay.
And then
I think with that, if we could follow up on information we did, where we were looking at someone to come in and help us with a strategic plan, because I think that plays in part of it. So if we can get an update on where we are with that, and because I think Prop 123 plays a part in that, like ongoing in that strategic plan.
I agree. I'm looking forward to our strategic plan.
I have one more.
All right, the Mrs. Whitener show. No.
Somehow it needs to be on the agenda, whether it's work study or how the district wants to present information before the board that the board has an opportunity to discuss. I don't mind if it's on the dais or in work study. A specialty program at a high school, specifically Williamsfield, especially the timing. So if district staff wants to bring forward ideas or that time, that if it's on the agenda, or that the board knows to come with ideas as well.
Absolutely. I'll work with Dr. Schillingberg and Dr. Miller-Wine to make sure we put together a committee to take a look at special programs for Williamsfield High School.
All right, anything else? All right, everyone have a good fall break, and this meeting's adjourned.
Second.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See, I'm trying to get away.